Okay.
Why don't we then start with the team from North Carolina? If you want to give us an introduction of yourself, maybe your name and you're in school and any other pertinent information that you'd like to share, feel free. Go ahead.
Okay, sure. I'll go first. So I'm Ihan, and I go by Jessica. We're all from UNC, and I'm a senior student majoring in statistics and also information science.
I'm Gina. I'm also a senior, and 4 of us are graduating. And my major is statistics and computer science.
My name is Moreau, and I'm a sophomore right now, and so majoring in statistics.
I'm a senior. I major in math and statistics, and then I'm graduating now.
Hi, I'm Erin, and I'm a senior. I major in biostatistics, and I'm a senior.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to go off webcam here because I'm getting some notes that it probably is slowing down the bandwidth a little bit. I don't want that to interfere. So let me stop sharing the webcam, and we'll just focus on you guys. And 15 minutes of presentation. If it goes over that, we'll probably give you a signal or something like that. But if you're ready to start, then the floor is yours.
Okay, shall we start right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. We're Team Tarheelytics, and we're here to give our presentation about SafeLife's new autonomous vehicle insurance policy design. Okay, so here's the agenda of our presentation today. We'll start by talking about the policy design of our new autonomous vehicle insurance policy and set up a social background and the launch date for our policy. Then we'll talk about our data modeling, including the pure premium estimate and also a 10-year forecast of the pure premium for both traditional and autonomous vehicle insurance policy. Then we'll give a sensitivity analysis and provide some recommendations based on the results. We'll then wrap up with a conclusion and also talk about some future insights, including data limitation and challenges of our project. Okay, so in order to design an autonomous vehicle insurance policy, we need to first understand CARB-US social background. So CARB-US government is currently developing autonomous vehicle and insurance regulations that mirror the legislation in the United States. So all of our policy design follows what U.S. federal automobile policy has regulated, and we adopt the timeline of self-driving car development in the United States market in this scenario. According to Toyota Research Institute, by adopting the international definition for the level of autonomy from the Society of Automotive Engineers, we have already achieved level 1 and level 2, which is partially autonomous level, and we will arrive at level 3 in the next year. Observing such ongoing market demand, we propose our launch date to be January 1st, 2019. Also notice that level 5, which is a fully autonomous car level, is not expected to enter the market in recent decades. So our policy design doesn't fully cover self-driving car. So after autonomous vehicles enter the market, we can easily see some new risks are generated because of the unique features of self-driving car system. Therefore, we need to redesigning what kind of damages will be covered in each liability type. So our research shows that there are 3 major types of new risks. The first one is hardware failure, which happens when autonomous vehicle sensors are not responding and thus causing some malfunction when computers are not affecting the remote signals. Secondly, software error happens when software engineers are developing the AV system. It is possible to have coding bugs and biased algorithms, which causes severe accidents. And the last thing we can think about is the cyber hacking. When all the self-driving car systems are connected, attackers are able to hack the control system and perform mass terrorism. So we decide to put all the damages generated by these 3 risks into the category of comprehensive liability. Other liability coverages, including personal injury, bodily injury, personal damage, and collision, will remain the same as traditional car insurance policy. And lastly, here's the final autonomous vehicle insurance plan we proposed. The overall structure looks the same as the traditional automobile insurance plan because we haven't reached the fully autonomy level and human is still driving the car. So going on from that, we have a discussion of what user groups are more willing to adopt the self-driving car, and thus need to be paid more attention to in the future of our insurance policy design. So in terms of policy type, we split into personal and commercial claims. Within those who travels a lot and live in a rural area where public transportation is very limited, would prefer autonomous vehicles. And for commercial vehicles, taxi and Uber drivers, especially when we have ride sharing and rental car business in a traffic busy urban city, is highly likely to buy self-driving cars. And we also think that those elder people, disabled people, young tech lovers, and wealthy people will favor self-driving cars as well. Therefore, we believe the driver age and driver risk are still crucial components in the risk classes, so we remain the same risk class categories as the one in traditional policy design.
Now that we have designed our insurance policy, let's move to the data modeling part. This is our general outline of modeling. In order to perform a 10-year pure premium estimation for the new policy from the launch date on January 1st, 2019, we start with a baseline of premium estimation, assuming they don't develop any new policy. If they choose to develop the proposed policy, applying several modifiers should identify and quantify what factors will likely affect future premiums. This combination of the traditional and self-driving cars helps to develop a combined insurance premium 10 years forecast. Then the baseline forecast can be understood as a steady state under the assumption that no higher level of automation will be developed. For one, the frequency and severity from 2009 and 2018 can be calculated based on Safe Life's traditional automobile insurance historical data provided. All calculations were done by Excel and attached in the supporting materials. For another, we apply separate techniques to the frequency and severity for the 10-year forecasting from 2019 to 2028. First, as observation for each risk class is in quarterly order, we adopt time series to predict the frequency. After data cleaning using R, we use ITSMR software to perform the time series analysis. Then to remove the observed seasonality and trend, we apply the classical decomposition model and the difference model. While we involved our model in predicting the future data points, we performed the jump box and rank tests to test the randomness of the procedures. These two figures are the illustration of the 10-year projections of the frequency for risk class, SYA and MSA for traditional commercial cars.
For the forecast of severity, we assume that the inflation rate is the only factor. We're getting inflation rates from 2009 to 2023 from International Monetary Funds. And we suppose that the inflation rate from 2023 will be the same throughout the year 2028. Therefore, following the formula of severity and apply the yearly inflation rate, we obtain the quarterly severity of 5 leverage coverages and 27 risk classes throughout 10 years. Then, multiplying frequency and severity, we get the baseline forecast of pure premium. Building upon the baseline forecast of traditional vehicles, we identify the factors that will influence the pure premium when autonomous vehicles are available in the market. We develop 2 frequency modifiers. The first one is auto insurance fraud. Insurance Research Council has estimated that now 13 to 70% of auto insurance claims are fraud. The better the technology, the better insurance company will identify the fraud claims. So we expect that there will be a gradual reduction in claim frequency. The second modifier is human error reduction. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration claims that 94% of car incidents are caused by human conducting error. Because autonomous vehicles will effectively reduce the probability of human error, there will be fewer claims. For severity modifiers, we keep the inflation rate as a factor. Another severity modifier is the increased repair cost. Advanced technologies will increase the vehicle complexity, hence the repair cost will also increase. In the discussion of forecast of combining automobile market, we have 4 assumptions. First, We assume that there will be no technologies developed beyond level 5 within 10 years. Second, autonomous cars will not be Army-based. Third, rental vehicles market will not expand. Fourth, the market share of personal and commercial auto claim remains at around 47% and 53% respectively. In the future, the traditional vehicles will continue its trend of exponential increase, which in our reports refers to the steady state. Furthermore, modifiers that we indicated before will be taken into consideration, and they will cause decrease in combined pure premium. By the end of year 2028, the pure premium will decrease by 13% by the reduction of human error, and will decrease by 10% due to the fraud reduction. Meanwhile, the combined pure premium will also increase by 4.9% by taking the inflation rate, population growth rate, and increasing repair costs in all. Finally, we utilize the formula above to all data from 2019 to 2028 and plotted them together. The combined pure premium by the end of 2028 is about 2.5 million cars, with a reduction of 18.3% from baseline forecast.
So following up with the baseline forecast, we then conduct the sensitivity analysis on the pure premium. Our priority is to optimize Safe Life's profits, which is minimize premiums. We also intended to accomplish the management goal that the new policy sales accounts for 20 to 25% of Safe Life's overall business. Through our data modeling, we identify 4 factors that will affect the premium: the new auto insurance shares, the insurance fraud reduction, severity, and then human error reduction. Based on the management goal, we set the base case of the new policy percentage to be 20%, and for the other factors, we just use the average of the modifiers. By increasing each factor by 25% respectively and keep the other factors fixed, we can see that except for severity and increasing new policy share, the insurance fraud reductions, human errors reductions will decrease the pure premium. The pure premium is the most sensitive to the numbers of new policies. And here is a detail of our analysis. In this table, we include another set of changes to better demonstrate the pattern that under the same amount of changes, increasing the numbers of new policy results in the greatest decrements in the pure premium. Based on the analysis, we offer a few suggestions to Safe Life to increase the new policy percentage and improve company's profits. First, to provide discount on new auto insurance policy to boost up the sales. Second, focusing on marketing for commercial auto insurance policies. Last but not least, reallocate the coverage for direct death to other injury categories. In this case, Safe Life can present their customers with higher coverage for common accidents without breaking the price. And now I'm going to quickly wrap up a couple of significant numbers and ideas appear in our data analysis section. So if Safe Life decided not to develop a new auto insurance, the predicted pure premium would be 3.14 million cars, given that 47.4% of the sold policy are personal claims. If Safe Life choose to launch a new policy at 2019, the predicted baseline of the pure premium is about 2.56 million cars, and the total annual expected loss will decrease by 18.3% compared to the previous case. Additionally, our sensitivity analysis showed that the dominant factors of Safe Life profit is the percentage of new auto insurance policies.
Now let's move on to the data limitations. During our data analysis, there are several data limitations, and we will summarize the main barriers into these 3 issues. As we all know, time series modeling is usually applied in big data analyses. We therefore think our results would be more accurate using a bigger data set with more data points. Also, our modeling fails to account for certain arbitrary factors. For example, we did not include natural disaster into our analysis because it is highly unpredictable, and for that nature, it is not compatible with the time series methodology. The last limitation is about the multipliers. In our sensitivity analysis, multipliers were developed based on our research and estimation, and the actual values may differ from the reality when autonomous vehicles are released into the market. There are a lot of things that our project has not dived deeply into, but remain in the conversation of self-driving cars. Many of the current concerns against self-driving cars are on the topic of ethics. Artificial intelligence will eventually replace human decision-making, but development of such technology will possibly go beyond our control. Also, the functionality of self-driving cars is heavily computer-based, so it is possible that the systems will be the target of terrorists and criminals through cyber attacks. Moreover, the users of self-driving cars may face the threat of privacy intrusion. In the following years, technology boom will transform the current regulations. It is important that our overall insurance guidelines address those upcoming amendments. Liability issues are expected to remain as the focus of all insurance policies, and this will continue to be the case as humans now have fewer control of the driving process. Finally, as we mentioned earlier, commercial auto policy will take up a bigger market share. Given commercial vehicles usually have higher accident rate, adopting AVs will likely to revolutionize the market. So in our future considerations, these are the things that we should always keep in mind to continue improving Safe Lives performance and insurance policy designs. That's all we have for today's presentation. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to open the floor up now to our judges to have some additional questions or inquiries into your presentation or methods or ideas. So judges, the floor is ours. Any questions for Team Tarheelytics?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Carlos Arocha. I have a question on page 7. You mentioned incurred claims and incurred losses, and I'm not certain why there's a distinction. Normally, claims and losses are synonymous. I'm not sure why this distinction.
So this is just the formula that we usually use in the textbook. There's not much distinction in it. Just for a better documentation or presentation, we just decided to use like a more formal definition.
Maybe to clarify, in this case, claims is kind of a count of claims, and losses is a dollar amount of losses. Is that what those refer to?
Yeah, I think so. The claim was just the number of claims, and the losses will be just in dollars or like in cards. Yeah.
Okay.
This is Haltep. I have some questions for you. In a few of your slides, I noted 5 and 16, and others as well, especially as you wrapped up. You talked about commercial vehicles and ride sharing. And we all recently learned that when Uber went public, that Uber and Lyft both have substantial reserves that they're holding to self-insure their vehicles. So if they're self-insuring their vehicles, and you were talking about they're using your ride sharing, and that might not be a possibility, could you tell me how, if at all, this removal of Uber and Lyft from the potential clients would affect your analysis and recommendations?
So just to clarify, oh, sorry, can you hear us?
Yeah. Keep going.
So just to clarify, so Uber is now developing their own cars, right?
No, they're insurance, not their own cars necessarily.
Oh, okay.
But they may be. But my question is, if they are not needing your insurance, how would that affect your analysis and recommendations?
So even though Uber may not, like Uber or Lyft may not adopt these insurance plan, but then we do have like a bigger market, even internationally, and then there will be more and more car sharing apps that we have paired, and then we believe that even though the numbers may drop down by a little, but then the bigger trends are still there. We believe that our the marketing on commercial policy will still be effective. Would be an effective recommendation.
Okay,
And
thanks.
just to add to that, Just to add to that, we think a big part of the commercial market is also physical tourist cars, but because of the drop in the accident rate for like with the introduction of autonomous vehicles, we think we would expect an expansion in the use of AVs in the commercial vehicles in the tourism field.
Thank you.
I have a question.
On your,
Go ahead.
no, I think it's the same question. Keep going.
I have a question for clarification. Later in the presentation, when you were addressing data limitations, one of the things that you noted was that there was a relatively small data set, and you would have liked to have had a bigger one.
Yes, that is correct.
What would have constituted a bigger one? How would you just describe a bigger one? I mean, 10 years of data. Would you want earlier data? What would you hope to have with a bigger data set?
Yeah. So based on our understanding, we are using a data set of 10-year data points to predict a 10-year from 2019. And if we want to jump like beyond that 10 years, it would be very limited using the current data set. So we would prefer a data set with more data points or more years.
Even though the data that is available is largely for traditional or almost entirely for traditional policies, and you are predicting autonomous vehicle for autonomous vehicle policies?
Yeah, so we're only talking about the traditional automobile data set that you provided with us. So when we're doing the time series analysis, we're only using 10 years, and for each year we'll have 4 points because the data are in quarterly based. So we only have 40 data points to predict our overall 10-year data points in the next 10 years after we launch our policy. So we're seeing that the more data points we have, instead of have only 40 data points for each liability coverage and for each risk class, we prefer like a longer data points, with about 100. That will help us to improve our accuracy when we're using the time series analysis model.
Okay. One other question about the data. In 2010, there were a couple of spikes in comprehensive data, but especially in 2010, there was a spike in claims. Couple questions. One, did you notice that? And two, if you did, how did you treat it and why?
Can you repeat the question about the 2010 part?
So in 2010, the data showed a big spike in the number of and amount of claims, especially under comprehensive coverage.
Oh, gotcha.
Did you notice it, and if so, how did you deal with it and why?
Yes, so we did notice that spike, as you mentioned. So this is, I believe, is in the information you provided us that in year 2010 there is a natural disaster in the country we are modeling for, and that's why we think the frequency and the number of claims and the amount of claims are increased for that year, for that particular year. For a solution, we did not, because this is a highly unpredictable and it's sort of an outlier, so we did not do much.
And then also when we're using the time series model, we also remove like the extreme noise when we removing seasonality and trends. So at that part, I think we somehow minimize like the effect of that spike, but we still keep some of the data just because it's still part of our time points that we're supposed to use.
So if I'm understanding correctly, you basically threw that that out because it was an outlier, and would not expect that there would be other natural disasters in the future. Correct? Did I understand?
Yeah, we partially smooth this.
Yes.
I heard two things. One is that you threw it out, and then Tian seemed to say that it was part of the data, you kept it in. So what exactly did you do with it?
So we didn't. We think this is an outlier because there's a peak and it's not like a overall. It's not fit in the overall like increasing trend. So we noticed that this one and we use our time series analysis to tackle over this problem. So we're talking about natural disaster. This is a thing that is really unpredictable. So we don't need to. So when we're thinking like in 2010, it's only because of the natural disaster that is causing this kind of peak. So we're using our time series analysis to overcome this thing. So we're not taking it as an outlier and taking it out. We just use time series analysis to predict it in the overall trend. And when we're like using the classical decomposition model and also differencing, we're smoothing it out so that in our future prediction, in our forecasting, we don't need to be influenced by such peak.
Let me understand this. What you're saying is you recognized it as an outlier, but it was part of the data set, so you kept it in. But the time series analysis, because it had a lot of other data points, smoothed it out. Are those 3 points correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so you kept it in and you let it smooth it out. Lisa, did that satisfy you?
Yeah.
Question answered.
So,
yep. Thank you.
Okay, this is Russell Handel. I seem to have some audio difficulties, so I signed back on. I can see all 5 of you. I have some questions about the time series analysis or general linear regression. I have 2 questions. First of all, when you do this type of analysis, usually there are tests to see how good it is. I mean, the software will always produce an estimate, but there are tests. So I just want to know which tests you used. And the second question is related. Very often you get point estimates, but you also get upper and lower ranges, like 95% confidence intervals. Did you look at the ranges? And if you did, how would that influence what you had said?
Oh, yeah. In terms of tests, actually, in the time series analysis, we first remove the seasonality and the trends to get the residuals. And we use the classical decomposition model and difference model to remove those components. And after that, the residuals should be random. And then we use the ARMA model to forecast the random work in the future for the future data points. And then we use the Legendre box test and the random test to test if the residuals are random. So if we can test it's random, then we pass the test and we can provide the data as a projection. And in terms of the 95% confidence interval, we did the software did provide those confidence intervals, and I think it's the data points are within those confidence interval, and
and then we do include a couple picture with the interval in the report and the supporting material, but then in the presentation, because it kind of like distract us from just directly looking at the train, so we didn't put that pictures on.
So it's in the supporting material, is that right?
Yes, and then it's also in the report.
In the report.
It's also where?
In the report.
It's in the report. Good. So let me just summarize what you said. After taking out the trend factors, which is normal in the time series, you use residuals and you use the lunchbox test. Is that right?
Yes. And we used other tests, multiple tests, such as the rank test and the number of turning point test, to do that, to make sure that we can improve the accuracy as most as possible.
Could you mention those other tests, please?
The Legendre box test, the rank test, the number of turning points test.
Okay.
Yeah.
one other thing, and maybe I didn't understand this. You gave them numbers 3.14 and 2.56 for the 10-year projection with and without the AV. So is that correct that with traditional it'd be 3.14 million carbs, and with if you put in the AV it'd be 2.56? Or did I? So it would appear that if I know management asked you to look at the 20 to 25%, it would appear that if they did not go into autonomous vehicles, they'd be making more money.
Grilled by judges.
Yeah. Hey, Carlos or Hal or whoever's, if you can go on mute. We can finish the question and answer.
Yeah. So it would appear that if they left themselves at traditional vehicles, they'd be making more money. Is that correct?
No, the pure premium is the expected loss. So our management goal is to lower. Is that good for us?
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so our goal is to actually minimize the expected loss. So while keeping the same price, we could earn more by cut down the cost. So by adding the autonomous vehicle, we actually can earn more if we didn't decrease the price.
On this one, if you were to not include autonomous vehicles, your pure premium with market share of cars is going to be greater than without autonomous vehicles. So is there a trade-off between autonomous vehicles and traditional vehicles in your base customers?
So based on our understanding, the pure premium is the expected loss from the company. So our goal is to minimize that pure premium. Sorry. So based on our understanding, based on our analysis and our finding, one unique aspect is that by including the autonomous vehicles into our policy design, we would actually earn more. We would actually improve our profit for the Safe Lives company.
And for the trade-off part, as we mentioned in the recommendation, we should focus more on the commercial policy, and the trade-off definitely will be instead of facing personal claims and then individual customer, we will prefer to face companies or a group of customers, seek for more business partner, because commercial policies will bring us much more profit.
I'm just curious if I could piggyback on that. At the beginning, you said there were 3 areas where AV would be preferred: rural areas, commercial, and young and wealthy. And now what you're saying is you kept on saying you're going to focus more on commercial vehicles. Did you look at all on focusing on rural areas or young and wealthy? I mean, you mentioned 3 things at the beginning and then just picked up on the commercial, maybe because that was easier or you had data on it. What about how did you look at all? Did you follow up on the rural areas and the young and wealthy?
Yeah, I think and at the beginning, we think that the target audience of autonomous vehicles will be in the rural area and also for commercial or technical lovers. And for them, from the 3, from different audience, from those different audience, we will see that those commercial policies or business ride sharing cars, they are the most efficient. So if we're gonna increase more policy from the commercial, we'll have much more profits compared to the other sectors.
No, I understand that. That's a marketing statement. My statement is later on you actually statistically analyze the percent of commercial and the percent of personal. Did you at any point follow up on the marketing recommendation and look at how much they would make in the rural areas and the non-rural areas, or how much they would make from the age groups that are young versus the age groups that are old. So you told me again, just to explain, when you answered me, you reiterated that you think it's a good marketing strategy. I know that. My question is, did you follow up and analyze how that would affect the 10-year projections, just as you did for commercial? You broke it out, personal, commercial, and this is how much you'd make. Did you try to break out the urban, rural, or the young, old in the analysis?
Yeah, due to our time limits, we did not follow up with that. But then we do in our when in the beginning when we roughly skim our data set, we do spot that the trends that the usually senior group are paying more for their insurance than the younger group, but we didn't follow up on that.
Can I ask just one quick question, Dale? One quick question. So I'm just curious because it is kind of cool actually. On page 11, you made a statement that said the vehicles would not be Army. See upper left, no Army-based AV in use. Could you just talk for like a few seconds about that?
Yeah,
why
of
you
course.
said that?
We set this one as an assumption in order to for easier calculation. But the reason why we put that here is because Army base usually have a lot of connection to natural disease or massive terrorism happening. So that's a highly unpredictable factor. So we just assume that the autonomous vehicles will not be Army based with at least within these 10 years.
Yeah, and then also usually Army-based autonomous vehicle has very large ethical debates on them, and also we believe that if there's an Army-based kind of weapon, kind of self-driven cars are developed, it usually go into the underground market instead of actually putting out and buying insurance.
Great, thank you.
Hey, very, very helpful. Thanks for taking this extra time to answer the questions from the judges. I'll note again that we are finishing up these presentations across the finalists over the next couple days and doing some evaluation on them. We certainly will be back in touch with you via email to let you know placement and be sure to, when we make announcements, you'll see yourself among the finalists. So again, congratulations already on that accomplishment. Certainly hope the rest of your semester at UNC goes well, and we'll be back in touch with you in the coming days. Thanks again for taking the time to do this presentation on a quick turnaround and helpful information that you've provided.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.